Have you ever wondered why bad things happen to good people? Today, we'll delve into one of the most intriguing and profound stories of humanity, the saga of Job. Imagine losing everything you love and still keeping your faith. This isn't just an ancient story, it's an emotional journey that challenges our deepest beliefs. Discover the mysteries of Job, a man who faced the unimaginable yet remained steadfast. Stay with us and see how this ancient story still resonates powerfully in our lives today. In this biblical story from the book of Job, we find a wealthy man named Job living in a region known as Uz. He had a large family and vast herds. Job was an upright and just person, always committed to living a moral life, and he had a very disciplined relationship with God. In the land of Uz, there lived a man named Job. This man was blameless and honest. He feared God and avoided evil. He had 7 sons and 3 daughters. He owned 7,000 sheep, 3,000 camels, 500 yoke of oxen, 500 donkeys, and numerous servants. He was considered the greatest of all the people of the East. Job's sons took turns hosting feasts in their homes on their birthdays and invited their 3 sisters to eat and drink with them. After a period of celebrations, Job would perform a purification ritual for them. Early in the morning, he would offer a burnt sacrifice for each one, thinking, "Maybe my sons have sinned and cursed God in their hearts." This was Job's regular practice, as described in the first chapter, verses 1 through 5. God highlighted Job's virtues to Satan. However, Satan argued that Job was righteous only because God favored him abundantly. One day, the angels came to present themselves before the Lord, and Satan was also among them. The Lord asked Satan, "Where have you come from?" Satan answered the Lord, "From roaming throughout the earth, going to and fro on it." Then the Lord said to Satan, "Have you considered my servant Job? There is no one on earth like him. A man of integrity and upright, fears God and shuns evil. Does Job fear God for nothing?" Satan replied, "Have you not put a hedge around him and his household and everything he has? You have blessed the work of his hands, and his flocks and herds are spread throughout the land." These dialogues between God and Satan are narrated in the book of Job, chapter 1, verses 6 to 10. Satan challenged God, saying if he was allowed to inflict suffering on Job, he would change and curse God. God allowed Satan to torment Job to test this bold claim but prohibited taking Job's life. "But stretch out your hand and strike everything he has, and he will surely curse you to your face," said the Lord to Satan. "Very well, then, everything he has is in your power, but on the man himself do not lay a finger." Then Satan went out from the presence of the Lord. These events are described in the book of Job, chapter 1, verses 11 to 12. Job received 4 messages in a single day, informing that his sheep, servants, and 10 children had died, victims of invaders, thieves, or natural disasters. One day, while Job's sons and daughters were feasting and drinking wine at the oldest brother's house, a messenger came to Job and said, "The oxen were plowing and the donkeys were grazing nearby when the Sabaeans attacked and made off with them. They put the servants to the sword, and I am the only one who has escaped to tell you." While he was still speaking, another messenger arrived and said, "The fire of God fell from the heavens and burned up the sheep and the servants, and I am the only one who has escaped to tell you." While this one was still speaking, another messenger came. "The Chaldeans formed 3 raiding parties and swept down on your camels and made off with them. They put the servants to the sword, and I am the only one who has escaped to inform you." While he was yet speaking, another came and said, "Your sons and daughters were feasting and drinking wine at the oldest brother's house when suddenly a great wind came from the desert and struck the 4 corners of the house. It collapsed on them and they are dead. I am the only one who has escaped to tell you." These tragic events are described in the book of Job, chapters 1, verses 13 to 19. In his grief, Job tore his robes and shaved his head, but he still praised God in his prayers. Then Job got up, tore his robe, shaved his head, and, falling to the ground, worshipped and said, "Naked I came from my mother's womb, and naked I will depart. The Lord gave, and the Lord has taken away, may the name of the Lord be praised." In all this, Job did not sin by charging God with wrongdoing. This response from Job is in the book of Job, chapter 1, verses 20 to 22. Satan appears in heaven again, and God gives him another opportunity to test Job. This time, Job suffers from terrible skin sores. Job's wife tries to persuade him to curse God and give up on life, but he resists and seeks to endure his sufferings. 2 plots are cleverly intertwined, one celestial and one earthly. The events high on the earth are the result of something that has already occurred in heaven, just as the war on earth immediately follows a conflict in heaven, as in the book of Revelation. Eliphaz, Bildad, and Zophar, 3 friends of Job, come to console him, sitting with him in silence for 7 days out of respect for his mourning. Job speaks on the 7th day, initiating a dialogue in which each of the 4 men offers poetic descriptions of his problems. Job curses the day of his birth, comparing life and death to light and darkness. He wishes he had never been born and that darkness had covered up his birth. Feeling that life only increases his agony, he states. Respond that Job, who previously comforted others, now admits he was never really aware of their suffering. Eliphaz concludes that Job's pain must be due to some sin he has committed and recommends that Job seek God's favor. Bildad and Zophar agree that Job must have committed some evil to provoke God's justice and argue that he should try to show a more innocent behavior. Bildad suspects that Job's children brought death upon themselves. Worse still, Zophar implies that any mistake Job may have made deserves far more pain than he has received. Job reacts to each of these comments by getting so upset that he calls his comforters. Job calls his friends worthless physicians who mask their help with lies, as described in the book of Job, chapter 13, verses 1-4. My ears have heard all about this. What you know, I also know. I am no inferior to you. But I desire to speak to the Almighty and argue my case with God. Yet you smear me with lies, you are all worthless physicians. Job questions why God judges people based on their actions when he could easily correct or forgive those acts. Job is perplexed at how a human can fully satisfy God's justice, given that God's ways are mysterious and beyond human understanding. Moreover, humans cannot convince God with their words. God does not be fooled, and Job admits that he does not even know himself well enough to defend his case before God. Job longs for someone who can mediate between him and God so that he will not be condemned to Sheol, the underworld. Job believes there is a witness in heaven, the Redeemer, who will testify to his integrity. As he expresses in chapter 19, verse 25, I know that my Redeemer lives, and that in the end, he will stand upon the earth. And chapter 16, verse 19. Even now my witness is in heaven, my advocate is on high. The suffering becomes unbearable for Job, and he becomes bitter, anxious, and frightened. He laments the injustice of God allowing bad people to prosper while he and many other honest people suffer. Job wants to confront God and complain, but he cannot find him physically. He thinks wisdom is hidden from humanity, but resolves to pursue it. Fearing God and avoiding evil. Eventually, God intervenes in the divine dialogue of the first round. During his speeches, Job asked God to speak with him 36 times. Now, his wish is granted. The 2 times God speaks to Job, it happens in the midst of a storm. There is a certain humor in how God addresses him. Job is reminded by God that he is the creator of everything. God goes through his impressive activity of creating and sustaining the world, asking Job if he could match that work. He concludes by asking if Job is in a position to judge, saying it is impertinent for Job to think God should explain himself to him. Job is made to feel very small. Eventually, Job answers, I am unworthy, how can I reply to you? I put my hand over my mouth. I have spoken once but have no answer, twice, but I will say no more. In the second round, God does not talk about himself as the creator but about 2 of his creatures. The speech is full of humor once again. He asks Job about his thoughts on the hippopotamus, the behemoth, and the crocodile, the leviathan, as if these incredible beasts held the answers to life's big problems. Job is reminded that he cannot understand God or the animal world, let alone the moral world. Thus, the main point of God is, why are you trying to argue with me? Job replies that God is omniscient and that no plan of his can be thwarted. He now realizes that his questioning of God was totally inappropriate, and he despises and repents in dust and ashes. Although the encounter with God is humbling for Job, the core issue of Job's problem is addressed as he reconnects with God. The dialogue offers a magnificent and unexpected climax to the book. In the epilogue, the text changes from poetry to prose when Job accepts that he should not blame God for his interactions with him. God restores Job's fortunes. 7 sons and 3 daughters, property, camels, and flocks of sheep, making him much richer and happier than before. As a servant of God, Job is rehabilitated. On the other hand, Job's 3 friends are severely rebuked by God, who says they did not speak correctly about him, indicating that we should not quote their speeches as if they were truths. What is remarkable about the 2 rounds of God with Job is that he still does not respond to Job's inquiries and does not tell him about his bet with Satan. Job did not need to know what was happening in heaven, for God had his reasons for allowing him to suffer. We should keep in mind a sharp difference between the Jewish understanding of this book and the Christian one. The Jew of Old Testament times could not see the problems of temporal life in the light of eternity. He felt that God's justice should be seen in this life since both good and bad people went to the same destination, Sheol, a place of a somber existence where broken spirits slept. Christians, on the other hand, have a completely different view of current suffering. They see the greater vision of heaven in the light of Christ's work. Suffering in this world pales in comparison to the life that awaits us in heaven. Consequently, there are only hints of life after death throughout the book of Job. At one point Job declares he will find God after his death. But this is not a recurring theme in the book, and he has no idea how this will happen. The book of Job has two main plots, the divine and the earthly plot. The book begins with the heavenly plot, God's meeting in heaven with Satan. Satan was an angel whose function was to report sins. He was God's prosecuting attorney, who traveled the earth to report to God how human beings were in Job's time. Satan had become so cynical that he did not believe that anyone could love God for God himself. He believed that people only loved God for what he could give them. Thus a debate between God and Satan occurs, with Satan arguing exactly that. God asks Satan if he has encountered Job in his travels through the earth. Job loves me because he loves me, not for any blessing he has received. God asserts. Satan's response is cynical, arguing that if God took away Job's blessings, he would blaspheme, turn against God, just like anyone else. As a result, the divine bet occurs. Tension is essential in any excellent drama. Job is unaware of the divine bet while the reader is aware. The test would be pointless if he knew. This encounter teaches us valuable truths about Satan. Firstly, it suggests that he cannot be in two places at once, not being endowed with God's omnipresence. The human plot, the debate between Job and his companions, occupies most of the book because Job is suffering more than other people. It is the central issue addressed. There are 2 points of view. A, the friends are sure that Job's suffering is due to his sin. B, Job is certain that he is not sinning and protests his innocence. The exchange is full of suspense as the reader knows that Job is correct. The two-plot structure of the book reminds us that no one knows the full picture when it comes to understanding why people suffer. It must be very difficult to defend oneself when in so much misery, in addition to the search for explanations. Everyone is confronted with a bigger question. Can I continue to believe in a good God when everything seems to be going wrong? The book of Job offers an answer to that question. What was Job's greatest pain? This clarifies the importance of this topic. It was a physical confrontation. He was covered with sores from head to toes, worn out, exhausted, and in excruciating pain. Socially, because of his physical appearance and because the local community was aware of his recent tragedy, he became a social pariah. People walked on the other side of the street rather than talk to him as he sat on the ash heap at the edge of the village. Even the teenagers laughed at him mentally. He faced the mental pain of not knowing why these anguishing things were happening to him, especially since there seemed to be nothing in his past that would point to that. Spiritually, his spiritual anguish was much worse than any other, for he felt cut off from God. Job cried out, begging God to locate him, speak to him, and even argue with him. This was the truly excruciating pain. Suffering is much more agonizing if we believe that God is distant and uninterested. However, when Job finally got to speak with God, things did not go as planned. For Christians, the book of Job can be seen within the context of the New Testament. One God allowed Satan to bring about the death of Jesus on the cross, with his own son asking, "My God, why?" Just like with Job, God did not explain why. This suggests that even the Son of God lost contact with the purpose of his suffering. About the intensity of the torment of crucifixion. 2. The Christian understands that life continues beyond death. The problems of suffering do not need to be resolved in this life. It is interesting to note that in the Greek version of the book of Job, an additional verse was added stating that he, Job, will rise with those whom the Lord will raise. 3. This hope of resurrection reminds us that there will be a final vindication of Job. Christians believe that Jesus will return to judge the living and the dead at the end of time. One day there will be a courtroom scene where Jesus will sit as judge, and all the bad and godly people who have ever lived will stand before his throne to be judged according to their deeds in the body. So everything that Job declared is about to become reality. God's justice will be applied to the entire human race in a public vindication of justice. We have just explored the depths of the story of Job, a journey of faith, suffering, and redemption that touches the soul and challenges our understanding. If you felt inspired and intrigued, or even questioning, know there is much more to discover. Every story we share here is a new opportunity to look inside ourselves and the world around us. Don't miss any of these fascinating explorations. Subscribe now. Like this if you connected with today's story and share in the comments how it impacted you, and don't forget to share this video with someone who, like you, loves to unravel life's mysteries and faith. Together we'll continue this journey of discovery and inspiration. Thank you for watching and see you next time. As we close another chapter together, I know some questions may still echo in your mind. You might be wondering how you can navigate the complexities of spiritual life and unlock a path to abundance and blessings. The journey is challenging, but you don't have to walk it alone. In the comments, you'll find a powerful key to that door that many seek to open, the ebook. Discover Prosperity with God, the ultimate guide to overcoming spiritual challenges and living an abundant life. This is not just a book, it's the fruit of years of research, experiences, and profound revelations now within your reach. Imagine overcoming the barriers that hinder your spiritual and financial growth. Think of the comfort and security of living a life aligned with the promises of prosperity meant for you. This ebook is more than letters on a page. It's a map to the treasure you deserve. Join the many who are already on a path illuminated by faith and knowledge. The power to transform your life is just a click away. Check it out now in the comments and embark on a journey to a life of fullness and prosperity. Remember, prosperity with God is not just a distant dream. It's a promise waiting to be fulfilled. And with this guide, you are one step closer to making it a reality. Your success story starts today.